Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Karmel. I'm a product manager for Android Instant Apps based in San Francisco. This is my first time to Korea, so thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So today I'll tell you a little bit about Instant Apps and walk you through some of the use cases that have been implemented today. But before we dive in, I'd like to talk about you guys and the great developers in Korea today. You have developed some amazing Android apps. We've put up some here. And we know that you focused on great user experiences, taking advantage of all the device capabilities, beautiful animations, and really focusing on that user experience. But we've also heard from you that it's really hard to get the user into that native app experience because of installation. Adam, in the previous session, spoke about this, that even if you get the user to click install, the likelihood, there's a pretty, well, not a high likelihood, but percentage of users that drop out even in the installation flow. So we want to figure out ways to get more users into this experience that you've optimized. And we came up with Android Instant Apps. The goal is to get the user into the native app experience without installation. Let me take you through a quick example. So since I've been in Korea, I've been eating a lot of yangnyeom, correct? Was that close? Maybe? Okay, so I've been eating a lot of yangnyeom. And my friend heard that I really got into chicken while I was out here. So she sent me a URL for chicken recipes. Now, usually, with installed apps, what would I do to watch this video? I would have to go find the app on the Play Store, download the app, and then find the URL or the actual video that my friend Joyce was talking about. During that period, every single step, I might drop out and not end up watching that video. But with Instant Apps, I click the link, and I'm in the native app experience. I'm in an Android native app without ever installing. Let me take you through a few more examples. Loop is a contract signing app. I don't sign contracts very often. I do not have this app on my phone. But if you've ever had to sign a contract, usually you get an email that says, time sensitive, sign now. And usually I have to go to my desktop, actually sign in or sign the contract, and it's a whole process because it's very hard on the mobile phone. But with Loop, they figured out a way to step you through this process. They show you where you have to read in the contract, they zoom into the signature, they zoom back out to read the rest of the contract, and then finish signing. With Instant Apps, Loop has seen a 62% increase in signatures. Let me take you through another example, an e-commerce example. Jet is a popular e-commerce company in the US. If you ever Google search detergent, you're likely to see something related to Jet. So with the Instant App, they've seen an improvement of 27% increase in conversions. It's, again, because of the great animations, the great user experience, the user being part of an immersive experience, but also an easy purchase flow, which I'll get into later on in the talk. The third example is more about engagement. So the first two examples were about completing an action, signing a contract, making a purchase. But a lot of people ask, are the users staying longer? The answer is yes. Vimeo is a popular video watching app. And here you can see there's an increase in 130% duration in time users spend in the video app. Why is that? They really optimize their player experience. So now a user shares a link, you watch the video, but you're more likely to watch the next video and the next video because the whole experience is set up natively to make that experience as highly engaging as possible. At I/O, we announced that we had 50 partners live. So 2 months ago, we did 50 partners live. Since then, we've seen a lot more partners starting to develop because we opened up to general availability for all partners. And taking a look at this list, you see developers from 14 different countries. across many different categories. So you have e-commerce companies like Jet and Wish, entertainment companies like Vimeo and Red Bull and Viki, news and publishing like Canadian Broadcasting Channel, OneFootball and Pocket, and travel applications like TripIt and Skyscanner. You also have many developers from this region, Viki from Singapore, REA Group and Domain from Australia, Castbox from China, Amberweather also from China, Klook from Hong Kong, Catchplay from Taiwan, and Wanted from Korea. So we've seen you begin to develop instant apps, and we're really excited about it. And I want to hear personally about new use cases you're starting to think about. So I'll mention this at the end of my talk too, but please come and talk to me. I'm actually here for you guys. I want to hear about all that you're thinking about with instant apps and really to help walk you through what we think the best optimization for instant apps would be. So please see me after the talk. Now let's take all those apps that are instant apps that are live today and put it on our phone. You can see it's very overwhelming. It would be a lot of real estate to cover on my phone. But this isn't a concern anymore. Your phone has the capabilities now to reach any instant app. So your phone basically is much more powerful than before because of instant apps. It has a lot more capabilities and a lot more reach to all the different applications out there today. So let me start talking about what it means to develop an instant app, and I will do a brief snapshot of what that looks like for a developer. Now, one important aspect of instant apps is it's a native application just like how you're developing your Android application today. You're going to use one code base, one project, and the tools you are already familiar with. You are not going to create a whole new project for your separate instant app. This is one development model. You will develop an Android Studio 3.0, and you will have to think through how you're going to modularize your app, and I'll take you through that a bit later on in the presentation. And you will upload to the Play console when you're done developing an instant app. The important thing is you're going to reuse your code from your Android app. We're trying to drive as much high reuse of your installed app code so you don't have to do new development. That means that you, as an Android developer, already have the skills to develop an instant app today. You do not have to learn new skills. You do not have to hire a new instant app developer. And what that means is for our partners that launched at I/O, it took them about 4 to 6 weeks to develop their first instant app. And we're working on new tooling to help get that time down even more. So let's talk about how you're going to prepare your use case. Remember, with instant apps, you don't think about installation. You think about that metric that caused you to develop an app in the first place. It would be to get the user to read an article, to watch a video, to sign a contract, to make a purchase. Think about that flow that you're trying to get the user to do. We've heard of 3 motivations from developers for developing an instant app. I'll cover all 3 a little in the next few slides, but it's conversion, reach, and new use cases. So let's talk about conversion. By conversion, we're talking about getting your users to the best property that you have. A lot of you as Android developers have put the most time and effort into optimizing the Android experience. So of your current user base, you're trying to get as many users into that experience today. Instant apps allows you to reach more of those current users and get them into your native app flow. And that's great because a lot of the metrics I showed before are about getting your current users to now get to that native application easier and faster. HotPads is a great example that saw an increase in their leads or users who are actually clicking to meet a real estate agent to see a property, which is what HotPads is. It's a real estate browsing app. They saw a 10% increase because they've optimized their app experience. Instant apps allowed more of their current users to go into that native app experience. Reach is about reaching new customers that you've never seen before. This is especially relevant for app-first developers. You can imagine if you've only thought about the Play Store or an app store as being a way to get your users, they would have to install before they view your experience. Now with Instant Apps, you have a lot more of the internet you can reach. They don't just have to install. You can put URLs across the internet. If you've never thought of search optimization, now you can click through to an Instant App through search. If you've never thought about social media, you can now click through social media to get to that native app experience. So a podcast app is the example here, Castbox. And a lot of the users of Castbox come through the Play Store. And I, as a user of Castbox, I never shared a podcast with my friends because I didn't know what their experience was going to be like. But now I can share a URL with them, and they're going to get into the best experience possible. So I'm more likely to share. There's more likely to be URLs across the internet because of Instant Apps. The third use case I'm especially excited about is thinking about new use cases that didn't exist in the installed app world. A lot of these are about context-aware apps. The example here is a baseball game. So I'm sitting at a baseball game. I know there's an app at the baseball game that will order food to my seat. But I don't go to a baseball game often. I go once, maybe twice a year. So I'm not going to download an app for that occasion. I'm going to just walk up and go to the concession stand. But now, if it's just easy for me to get into that app, I'm more likely to actually use it and more likely to order food to my seat. But now the onboarding experience is a little different. Now I have to think about NFC or a beacon or a QR code. A lot more about context aware of where I am at that time to jump into that Instant App. And we really think that Korea would be a great place for something like these type of new use cases because it's a lot more popular to have these context-aware applications here in Korea. So I'm really excited to hear about some of the use cases you're thinking about developing that take into account this type of trigger mechanism. So hopefully now you're excited to develop an Instant App. And now let's talk about things to keep in mind, some guiding principles as you develop your Instant App. With Instant Apps, we like to think about it as one application between your installed app and your Instant App. So it's one app that you run in two different modes. That's how we like to think about it. Now, we like to give an example of Instant Apps is like the streaming version of music. Similarly, in music, you break up an album, you modularize the album into songs, and then you stream each song. You also don't think about which songs you have on your phone and which ones you don't. You're sitting at home, you're going to listen to music that you want to listen to at that time. It's very similar to Instant Apps. Now, when you go on a plane, you have to think about offline mode. So maybe you'll download a few of those songs to your phone. Again, very similar to now thinking about an installed app. So that's how we think about Instant Apps, is you have access to all apps at any time. And now you're going to switch to installed mode when you need to use it for offline usage. From a developer standpoint, it's also one app. Here you can see the previous version with the installed app where you have feature 1, 2, and 3. With Instant Apps, you're going to break up your features into feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, so that a user can access each feature as needed. They're using the code that they need at the time they need it. But from a development standpoint, it's still building into an installable APK, and it's still building into an instant APK. So you don't actually have to change your development model between the two. You're just going to modularize your current code base, and then you can use it both as an installed app and an Instant App. From a user standpoint, it's also one app. Here you can see Vimeo's implementation of Instant Apps. You can't tell the difference between before installation and after installation. Their user experience is the same. This is not a trial app where you're trying to get the user to have a tiny sliver of an experience similar to your installed app. They're trying to have the exact same experience. And what Vimeo saw with having that same experience is that they're not only having increased engagement, they're still getting a high install rate. So it's positive on both fronts. And that's great for the user. The user doesn't have to relearn going from an Instant App to an installed app. They already know how the app works, the navigation, the UI. So this is great from a user experience. Now let's talk about what happens when you get into the app. But first you have to enter the app. So let's talk about the different ways to enter the app. You might have thought when it was an installed app that you have one entry point, maybe one monolithic app with one front door. But with instant apps, you have to start thinking about all the side entries, different ways that the user could enter your flow. What if a user shares a link that says, try out this recipe? You want that user to land in the recipe. You don't want them to land in the front door and have to figure out how to go through the process. So you have to think about the context the user's coming in. Are they coming from social media? Are they coming from search? And we do have search integration already built in with instant apps. So example, I type in New York Times crossword. I go into the New York Times crossword puzzle. And because I'm searching, they know that I want to go directly into the crossword puzzle. I don't necessarily want to go through the front door. So here's an example where I'm immediately in the crossword and I quickly finish it. So again, thinking about the context of where the user is coming in. But home entry is still important. With Android O, we're actually built instant apps into the framework. So now we're thinking about how to have first-party and third-party launchers work with instant apps. Here you can see with the New York Times, I click the New York Times from my homepage, for my launcher. I've pulled it onto my homepage. You see that little instant app logo. And then I click it 5 days later. I don't want to go right into the crossword puzzle I was in 5 days ago because I might have forgotten where I was. I forgot the context. I want to reset and recalibrate, so I want to go through the home page. So the home page is still relevant, as was the side entry for other contexts. So with instant apps, I talked a lot about decreasing the install friction, but we also care about decreasing friction across the native app experience, including identity and payments. How many times have you entered an app and it asks you to sign in and you don't even realize why you're signing in? You don't realize what the app is. Or for payments, how often have you wanted to pay for something and didn't have a credit card nearby? So we want to solve this for instant apps as well. From an identity standpoint, we've had a lot of our early partners move that sign-in flow towards later on in the user experience, especially if I'm coming through the side entry, someone sharing a recipe, sharing a video. I want to land in that video. I want to land in that recipe. If you need the user to sign in, have them sign in once they've seen value in their experience. We also use Smart Lock for identity, which is a password manager for Android, Chrome, and Chromebooks, which allows you to stay signed in between instant app experiences, as well as if I ever go from Chrome into an instant app or Android app, I stay signed in. From a payment standpoint, we both have digital payments and physical payments. Digital payments will work just like they work with installed apps. Your in-app purchasing will work identically in the installed app mode. For physical purchases, we have a new Google Payment API, and this allows a user to access any form of payment that a user already has with Google. So if I'm really into games and I'm making a lot of in-app purchases, I can use that same form of payment as a user and use it for a physical purchase. This is great because you'll have new users entering your instant app. They might not have a form of payment with you on file because they're a new user. With just a few clicks now, they can make a purchase. I would also encourage you not to introduce new friction. We're really focused on decreasing the friction as much as possible, really completing that action as quickly as possible for the user. And with early access partners, we were testing a few things. There were some unexpected install prompts, some splash screens, and we saw this actually hurt the user experience. So we encourage you to decrease friction, not increase or introduce new friction. And if the user has a great experience and they decide to make an installation, we think that's a great thing. We're happy that users are still choosing to install and use it for offline mode or for other purposes. So let's talk about what that looks like. Here's an example where I'm watching a video and I hit the install button. You can see that it loads an inline installation. I never go to the Play Store. I install right there. And if the developer copies the data of the user, I can dive right back into the experience as if I never left. I continue watching the video or I continue to the next video in order. This, again, we're trying to decrease that friction so there's less drop-off. So what will this look like from a UX standpoint? Well, you want to put install somewhere on that flow. You can see on the left that the installation is really embedded in the UX, so it feels like it's part of the native app experience. It's not like a prompt that jumps out at you. On the right, you have Wish that put it in the nav drawer. We think this is also a great experience. The user, when they want to install, they know exactly where to go, and they just have a click of a button to get the new install API to run. Finally, let's talk about what it means once you, to track success. You've developed your instant app. You want to now upload it and see how successful it is. So you're going to upload it to the Play console, similarly to how you do with your installed APK today. You're going to have 3 tracks, development, pre-release, and production. And what's great is the latest update is available to users, right? As soon as they click that URL, you can now send them the latest update of your instant app. We very much encourage experimentation. We have this new holdback mechanism for instant apps that allows you to determine what percentage of traffic goes to the instant app versus the mobile web. And this is great for you to test and try to understand how to optimize the instant app. So we encourage you to use this and really understand why users are preferring one or the other property. And we also want you to start thinking about metrics. How are metrics going to now change now that there might not be an installation? Hello? Oh, sorry. Or that the installation has moved to the end of the flow. So it used to be that you would have to go to the Play Store and install, and then all these great benefits could happen. The browsing, the engagement, the purchase, the sign up. But we've kind of flipped that on its head. You can now purchase before you install. You can sign in before you install. And a user might not ever install, or they'll install at the end. So now you have to start thinking about optimizing for the metric that you care about, and then thinking about what it means for a user to actually have an installation later on. And we're working with a lot of the different analytics SDKs to make sure they start accounting for some of these different metrics or these different visits. And you'll see on our developer documentation some of those implementations that have been done today. Finally, you have to kind of think to yourself, how do you define success? And again, I've listed some of the things that our early partners thought about. Optimizing the number of tickets purchased, the number of flights found, the number of watch hours for a video, or the number of length of time spent reading a news article about football. So all these things you have to start accounting for and thinking through, and it actually makes it more efficient. You're actually optimizing the thing you care about the most. So let me quickly recap what we talked about today. The first thing is that now anyone can build an instant app. I encourage you to go to this site, g.co/instantapps. You'll see all the developer documentation up there for development. I've talked about what motivates a lot of our early partners to develop an instant app. Getting more conversions, getting new users, and starting to think through new use cases that couldn't exist in the installed app. And finally, we talked about what you should keep in mind during your development. Thinking about having one app, different entry points, reducing friction, including reducing the friction of installation and what that means. And finally, thinking about new metrics that might be relevant in this new instant app mode. Finally, I would encourage you to come afterwards and speak to me. I would love to hear about all the use cases that you're thinking about here and really work together to figure out how to get some of these new cases out. Thank you so much. Appreciate being here.